there's a rule in the 48 laws of power where you play a sheep to catch a wolf. I feel like that's what Dillian Whyte's doing. If he is, if he's not, because I'm gonna bring the heat Saturday night.
Dillian Whyte, are you playing the sheep to catch the wolf? Is that what's been going on?
But there are no sheep around there, you know. No sheep around here. There's a lot of wolves around here, but no sheep.
Welcome back to Boxy Hub, your home for the rawest takes and deepest breakdowns in the fight game. This episode is all about Moses Itauma and his bold declaration ahead of Saturday night, paired with the intensity of Dillian Whyte, who has his own story of resilience and hunger in boxing. From Whyte reflecting on his journey to Moses doubling down on his belief in himself, this press conference gave us plenty of fire to break down. Stick with us until the end of the video as we unpack every single statement leading into fight night and reveal why Moses insists he is going to win. Before we dive in, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to Boxy Hub, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update in the world of boxing. Dillian Whyte's words during this press conference were layered with both humility and conviction, a mix that perfectly captures his career. He admitted that despite already headlining major events and being in high-profile pay-per-view fights, he has not truly taken the time to sit back and reflect on what he has achieved. Instead, he remains in constant pursuit of what comes next. This reveals something critical about Whyte's mindset. He is still chasing greatness, still driven by the hunger that got him to this stage in the first place. For a fighter like Whyte, the past is not where he lives. He acknowledges it, but does not dwell on it, because boxing is a sport that punishes complacency. What comes across clearly is that Whyte refuses to plateau. He has more to accomplish, more to prove, and he still feels there is unfinished business in his career. His reflection also comes with an edge of gratitude. He openly acknowledged that he was not supposed to be here, not supposed to rise to this level in the sport. That acknowledgement is not self-pity, but a recognition of the odds stacked against him. For Whyte, every fight, every opportunity, every headline appearance is part of a journey that was never promised. It is the kind of underdog story that resonates with boxing fans because the sport has always been about overcoming. Whyte is a fighter who embodies that raw, working-class grit, even at this stage of his career, where some fighters might begin to fade into the background. He insists there is more in the tank. The hunger, the drive, and the sense of purpose remain alive within him. The deeper takeaway here is that Whyte is framing Saturday's fight not just as another bout, but as another chapter in his ongoing chase. He does not see himself as a man satisfied with what he has done. He is not looking back fondly on the past, but forward to what is still possible. That relentless mindset is exactly why he continues to be relevant. Fighters who cannot sustain that fire eventually fade, but Whyte is making it clear he is not one of them. His presence at the table is not just symbolic, it is a declaration that he still belongs at the highest level. And in the context of facing a young and hungry opponent like Moses Itauma, this reflection on his own journey sets the tone. It is the grizzled veteran acknowledging his past, but sharpening his claws for the present moment.
I've had a few main events, a few pay-per-view fights or whatever, but you know what? There's so much more left for me to even chase in the game. I haven't really sat back, think about this and think about that. Listen, I'm someone that's not supposed to be here.
When Moses Itauma took the mic, he spoke with the poise of a fighter who knows he is walking into a defining night. His words carried an uncommon maturity, especially for someone at this stage of his career. He pointed out that above all the people he could thank for getting him here, the one he needed to thank most was himself. That statement may sound bold, but in reality, it reveals his understanding of the sacrifices he has made, the grueling hours in the gym, and the discipline that cannot be faked in boxing. Fighters often lean on their teams, their trainers, and their supporters, but Moses emphasized the accountability that comes from within. He is here because he refused to quit on himself, and that acknowledgement highlights the mental steel required to be where he is now. Moses also recognized the strength of his opponent, calling Dillian Whyte a strong contender. This is important because it strips away unnecessary animosity. He is not underestimating the man across the table, nor is he trying to stir artificial drama. Instead, Moses is threading the needle between respect and determination. He made it clear there is no personal vendetta here. It is strictly business. This type of framing shows that Moses understands the professional side of the fight game. While emotions can run wild, his focus is purely on the task at hand. Respect does not equal fear, and acknowledgement of Whyte's status does not mean he doubts himself. By presenting the fight as just business, Moses is signaling that he is entering the ring with a cold, calculated mentality. He is stripping away the emotional distractions and approaching the fight as a job to be completed. This mindset is what allows young fighters to rise quickly because they do not waste energy on unnecessary rivalries or theatrics. For Moses, Whyte is simply another obstacle on his path, and his confidence in himself is unshaken. His self-thankfulness combined with his respect for all approach paints him as a fighter who is both humble and ambitious. He knows what he brings to the table and understands the magnitude of the moment. This section of his comments sets the stage for a performance driven by discipline rather than emotion, a dangerous combination for any opponent.
The last person I'll have to thank is myself, because I put the work, got myself to this stage, and I feel like Dillian Whyte is nothing personal. I got respect for every fighter that's on this table, but just business.
Dillian Whyte's second set of remarks peeled back even more layers of his journey. He reminded everyone that he never had the luxury of a decorated amateur career or a major support system. His rise did not come with endorsements, institutional backing, or golden boy treatment. Instead, he carved his path through resilience and determination. Coming from Jamaica, where opportunities were scarce and expectations were low, he was counted out time and again. He admitted that people wrote him off, labeling him as someone who would not survive, let alone thrive, in life. To many, he was supposed to be a statistic, a story cut short before he even reached adulthood. Yet here he stands, not only surviving, but excelling. This narrative is one of defiance. Whyte embodies the essence of the fighter's spirit, refusing to let external perceptions dictate his destiny. His journey from near hopelessness to headlining major fights is nothing short of remarkable. What makes his words even more powerful is the way they challenge the audience to understand the stakes. For Whyte, boxing was not just a sport. It was a lifeline, a way out, and a chance to create an identity beyond the limitations imposed on it. Every time he steps into the ring, he carries that story, and it fuels his performances. Whyte's reminder of his roots also provides context for his determination against Moses Itauma. While Moses speaks from the perspective of building his legacy, Whyte speaks from the perspective of survival and defiance. His existence in this space is a victory in itself, but he is not content with just being present. He wants to keep pushing boundaries and proving doubters wrong. That is why his words resonate so strongly. He is the living embodiment of overcoming adversity, and this fight is yet another chance to show that resilience. By contrasting his lack of early advantages with his current standing, Whyte underscores that no obstacle has been too great for him. That is the spirit he brings into Saturday night, and it is what makes him a perpetual danger in the ring.
I've had a great amateur career, no support. You know, I'm a kid from Jamaica who's been written off many times. Not meant to survive, meant to be dead before I was in my 20s and stuff, but look, here I am doing stuff, so yeah.
Moses Itauma then admitted something that revealed the human side of fight preparation. He openly shared that for a long time, he did not even believe the fight would happen. This vulnerability adds depth to his confidence. It shows that beneath the bravado, there was uncertainty, and yet despite that doubt, here he stands, ready and focused. The acknowledgement that he once thought the fight might not materialize makes his current readiness even more significant. It is not just about physical preparation, but also about mental adaptation. The fact that he trained and stayed sharp despite those doubts speaks volumes about his professionalism. He then emphasized the depth of his training camp. 14 weeks of preparation is not something fighters say lightly. That is months of grueling sparring, conditioning, technical drills, and sacrifice. It is a signal that he has left no stone unturned. The phrase, "We trained, we're live, we're ready," is a declaration of readiness that carries weight because of the context he provided. Moses is not walking into Saturday night underprepared or making excuses. He is walking in sharpened by the grind and strengthened by the doubts he overcame along the way. This section highlights Moses's duality as a fighter, the vulnerability to admit doubt and the resilience to push through it. That combination makes him dangerous because it shows he has both awareness and grit. He is not blinded by arrogance. He understands the magnitude of the fight, the risks, and the weight of expectation. And yet, instead of letting those doubts hold him back, he converted them into fuel. By the time Saturday night arrives, he will not just be ready physically, he will be prepared mentally in a way that only doubt and perseverance can build. For a young fighter, this kind of maturity is rare, and it positions Moses as more than just a prospect. It positions him as a real threat.
To be honest, for a long time, I didn't think the fight was going to happen. But we're here, we're live, we're ready, we trained, we've been in camp for maybe 14 weeks now, so...
Moses Itauma is not just another young heavyweight trying to carve out a path in the sport. He's stepping into the fight game with a mindset that mirrors the strategies of warfare, manipulation, and psychological dominance. When he references the 48 laws of power, specifically the principle of playing a sheep to catch a wolf, he is talking about deception, about creating a facade of weakness in order to lull the opposition into a false sense of confidence. Itauma believes Dillian Whyte might be attempting to present himself as vulnerable, battered, or underestimated in order to catch him off guard. And while some may dismiss this as overthinking, Itauma's acknowledgement of this psychological layer is a sign that he is not walking into this battle blind. He understands that at the highest level of boxing, fights are not only won with fists, but also with the mind. Dillian Whyte has been around long enough to know how to play the game. He has lost some fights, yes, but he has also shown flashes of resilience and cunning that have allowed him to remain relevant in one of the most dangerous divisions in all of combat sports. If Itauma is correct, Whyte could be deliberately softening his image, lowering expectations, and allowing people to think he is past his prime, so that when the bell rings, he can unleash a level of ferocity his opponent is not prepared for. That's the essence of the sheep-to-wolf disguise. But here's where Itauma separates himself. He flat out declares that it doesn't matter. Whyte can play whatever role he wants. He can act the sheep, he can act the wolf, he can disguise his intentions however he chooses. Moses Itauma is not entering that ring to study acting performances. He is entering that ring to bring the heat, to unleash pressure, and to set a pace that even a crafty veteran veteran like Whyte may not be able to withstand. This statement is a warning wrapped in conviction. Itauma is young, hungry, and determined to stamp his authority. The language he uses is not passive. He does not say, "I'll see what he brings," or "I'll adjust if needed." No, Itauma asserts with certainty, "I'm going to bring the heat Saturday night." That level of confidence is the mark of a fighter who has no interest in playing psychological chess. Itauma wants to drag this fight into a furnace, to force Whyte into exchanges that favor youth, explosiveness, and relentless aggression. It is also a subtle challenge to Whyte. If you want to disguise yourself as a sheep, fine, but don't expect me to be the wolf who falls for the trap. Expect me to be the fire that burns through every disguise. This approach is dangerous but also electrifying. For boxing fans, Itauma's declaration adds spice to this matchup. It tells us that we are not going to see a cautious, tiptoeing young fighter who respects the experience of the older man too much. Instead, we're going to see a fighter who wants to test Whyte immediately, who wants to find out if Whyte's legs, reflexes, and chin are still capable of surviving a storm. That is the gamble Itauma is taking. Youth often brings with it the blessing of fearlessness, but also the curse of impatience. If Itauma presses too hard, if he underestimates the possibility that Whyte really does have a trap waiting for him, he could walk into something devastating. But that is what makes this narrative so gripping. Itauma is promising action, promising intensity, and in doing so, he is guaranteeing drama. The use of the 48 laws of power analogy also shows us something else about Itauma. He sees boxing as more than just a sport. He sees it as war, as manipulation, as survival of the fittest. This is not just about throwing punches. It is about control, deception, dominance, and ultimately victory through both mental and physical superiority. When Itauma promises to bring the heat, he's telling us that no psychological trick or wolf disguise can stop raw willpower, youth, and intensity. And if he makes good on that promise, Dillian Whyte could find himself in a firefight he is no longer equipped to win.
There's a rule in the 48 laws of power where you play a sheep to catch a wolf. I feel like that's what Dillian Whyte's doing. If he is, if he's not, because I'm gonna bring the heat Saturday night.
Dillian Whyte's response to the sheep and wolf analogy cuts through the noise with his trademark bluntness. He dismisses the entire idea of disguising himself as a sheep. In Whyte's eyes, there is no pretending, no facade, no deception. His world is full of wolves, full of predators, full of fighters ready to eat or be eaten, and he makes it clear he is not the sheep in anyone's story. This response is classic Whyte, direct, rugged, and grounded in the reality of his own experience. Whyte has spent years in the heavyweight division, one of the most brutal arenas in all of combat sports. He has stood across from the likes of Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Alexander Povetkin, and Joseph Parker. These are not sheep. These are wolves who have tried to tear him apart, and he has both survived and fallen against them. But the key here is survival. Whyte is battle-tested. His career has been defined by wars, knockdowns, comebacks, and sheer grit. So, when Itauma suggests he may be playing the sheep to catch a wolf, Whyte scoffs at the idea because it does not reflect the reality of his career. He has never been a sheep, and he refuses to allow that label to stick. By declaring that there are no sheep around here, Whyte is reasserting his identity as a predator, as someone who has always lived and fought among killers. This is not a division where weakness can survive. In the heavyweight class, one punch can change everything, and Whyte's statement is a reminder to Itauma and to everyone else listening that he belongs to that fraternity of wolves who have been forged in the fires of real heavyweight battles. The young fighters may come with their analogies, their references to power laws, and their psychological games, but Whyte's reality is simple: fight or be eaten. This response also reveals Whyte's mindset going into the fight. He does not care about playing games or wearing disguises. He thrives in chaos, in exchanges, in the raw violence of heavyweight slugfests. His message to Itauma is straightforward. Don't think of me as a sheep pretending to be weak. Think of me as one of the wolves who has been here, who has bled here, and who is ready to remind you that this division is not for the faint of heart. It also carries an undertone of warning. By insisting that the division is full of wolves, Whyte is essentially telling Itauma, you're not walking into a playground, you're walking into a jungle. Young fighters often enter the heavyweight division with ambition and boldness, but the veterans are quick to remind them that this is not a place where ambition alone can keep you safe. Whyte's tone suggests that Itauma will have to prove himself not just with his talk but with his fists. This exchange highlights the clash of generational perspectives. Itauma sees the fight through the lens of strategy, deception, and psychological warfare. Whyte, on the other hand, sees it through the lens of survival, experience, and brute force. For Itauma, it's about catching a wolf. For Whyte, it's about reminding everyone that wolves eat sheep, and in his world, there are no disguises, only predators. That's the beauty of this matchup. A young lion stepping into the den of an old wolf, both claiming dominance, both promising to bring fire, and both refusing to be labeled weak.
Dillian Whyte, are you playing the sheep to catch the wolf? Is that what's been going on?
But there are no sheep around there, you know. No sheep around here. There's a lot of wolves around here, but no sheep.
The build-up to this fight between Moses Itauma and Dillian Whyte is more than just promotional hype. It is a clash of philosophies, of generational mindsets, and of survival instincts. Itauma, with his reference to the 48 laws of power, represents a new school of boxing thought. He sees the sport as a game of deception, manipulation, and psychological positioning. He believes that Whyte might be playing weak, disguising himself as a sheep to catch him off guard. But Itauma's response to this possibility is not caution, it is aggression. He promises to bring the heat, to set a pace that Whyte cannot match, to test the older man's resolve and durability from the very first bell. That is the voice of a hungry contender ready to stake his claim. Whyte, however, refuses to indulge in these analogies. His rebuttal is sharp and grounded in reality. There are no sheep in this game, only wolves, and he is one of them. His career has been carved out through battles against the best, through knockdowns and comebacks, through victories and brutal losses. He has lived among predators his entire career, and he will not allow himself to be cast as prey in anyone's story. To Whyte, Itauma is not catching a wolf. He is walking into a den full of them, and he must prove whether he belongs. This clash of words sets the stage for an explosive encounter. Itauma's youth, hunger, and intensity collide with Whyte's grit, experience, and refusal to be overlooked. The psychological warfare has already begun. One fighter talks about strategy and deception. The other talks about survival and predators. But when the bell rings, words will no longer matter. Only fists, power, resilience, and heart will decide the outcome. This is not just a fight between two heavyweights. It is a generational test. Can the young lion, Moses Itauma, impose his will and burn through the veteran's experience with his relentless heat? Or will the old wolf Dillian Whyte remind the youngster that in this division, hunger alone is not enough to survive? That is the question hanging over Saturday night, and that is why this fight has captured the imagination of the boxing world.